Tired. All right, here we go. Wednesday, November 21st, Sportsbit Betting Insight today. Paulie and Teddy, SBR picks, all the betting news you need to know in less than 20 minutes. We'll go rapid fire with the 3 Thanksgiving games in the NFL and work in Sunday Night Football. And the Rodgers road woes continue. Loser leaves town with the Vikings and the Packers coming up. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. Bad beats, Clippers pick 'em. Led by 19 at the half, led by 24, lost the game. It was the first time in franchise history the Clippers had a 19-point lead or more at halftime and lost. And they've stunk, and they've been around for a while. And the free throw disparity was off the charts. Maybe this energizes the Wizards a little bit as they come from behind down big and get the win. Wall played well in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen the half-game efforts from Washington repeatedly this season. We've also seen 0-game efforts. But one thing that I don't think I've seen once this year is the Wizards play 48 minutes of good basketball. Last night, Clips fell asleep with the lead. It does happen in the NBA. Wizards got inspired in the fourth, but in my mind, that's not a buy sign on Washington. It's just one of those games. Unfortunately, had the Clips. It was one of those games that cost you money.
How about Citadel under? 166 against James Madison. 28-27 at the half. You heard me. 28-27 at the half. You get overtime, and it goes over 91-82. It was bet up as Citadel plays crazy up-tempo basketball. It was bet up from 163 to 166 and gets there with overtime.
Yeah, it gets there with room to spare in overtime. Now, if you had the under 166 in a game that had 55 points at halftime, you needed 112 in the second half to beat you, and you lost that game, dude, take a day off. That is a brutal bet. I don't know if you had it. I don't know many people out there that did, but that's about as bad a beat as you're going to have when it comes to totals. You got 111 points to spare. Doesn't matter. Didn't cash. Ouch. That's a rough beat.
Got that right. And Arizona and the Maui Invitational catching 10 up 13, led by 8 at the half. They lost by 17. Duke and Gonzaga, 2 o'clock Pacific today in the championship. I see Duke's laying 7, number 1 against number 3.
Yeah, and I love these Thanksgiving tournaments for one reason and one reason only. The teams that look great tend to come back really overvalued. The teams that look crappy tend to come back really undervalued. Thanksgiving tournaments are not a good predictor of how good teams are, but the markets tend to view them that way. All that being said, you had the Wildcats last night, and you're up 8 at the half, and you're plus 10. Didn't do you any good. Tough beat there for Arizona Packers.
All right, bad for the books. Only 4 games in the association, but Clippers over 230 up to 233. That goes over. Knicks, Blazers over 215.5 to 220. Knicks are tanking. They want to make it look good. They're a good go against in play if they have the lead. Happened again last night. Same with the Atlanta Hawks. And Portland wins, but they don't cover. Ball State over 54 up to 56. That was 42-41. Some bad bets. Northern Illinois. I cannot figure out the MAC. It was a wild year this year in the MAC. Buffalo wins Friday. They play Northern Illinois in the MAC title game. Northern Illinois clinched a couple weeks ago. They've been going through the motions. 5.5 up to 6.5. Lost by 7 against Western Michigan, who stunk since the quarterback got hurt. Ball State from 17 down to 15. Lost by 3 touchdowns. What do you think of some of the action? I could not get a feel for that conference the whole season.
Well, I mean, the MAC is so unique. When we think about the lesser conferences, the minor conferences in D1 college football or FBS college football, the MAC, in my mind, has the most opportunity for bottom feeders to become good teams and for good teams to go bad. Over the course, and I've been in Vegas now 20 years, over the course of the 20 years I've been here, there have been 12 different teams that at one point have been the best team in the MAC. There's no other conference in college football like that over a 20-year span. So the topsy-turvy nature of that conference allows a single coach, sometimes a single player, to have an outsized influence in MAC football. Of course, last night, the bettors got Northern Illinois wrong. They got Ball State wrong. At least they got the total in the Ball State game right. But it's not necessarily an easy conference. Not at all, Paul.
And they were betting these Maui games over nonstop too. Duke over didn't get there, 164 to 170. Clemson over against Akron, 139 to, was it Akron? Oh, that was the last night. 139 up to 144 and a half, fell one short. Well short is that one. And I wanted to throw this in. TCU was laying 12 and a half. Lipscomb with their first ever win against a ranked opponent since they became D1 are the Atlantic Sun. They win. They beat TCU, as top 20 team, catching 12 and a half. Good job by that program as well. Here we go. Thanksgiving. We started off in the morning with the Bears and the Lions. Shame on the NFL. This is a disgrace. It's the first time since the merger that a team, they flexed them into the game too. They flexed them into Sunday night. They're the early game on Thanksgiving. Bears are 3, 44 and a half at Detroit. They just played. Bears led 26 to nothing, and then Stat Padford went to work and does what he always does, moves the ball and puts up yards in garbage time when they're getting their ass kicked. So they just played. Now with the Bears, Trubisky, they're cautiously optimistic that he'll be able to play. If not, it'll be Daniel. I like the Bears better with Daniel anyways. Bears on the road, beat the Bills, forced a lot of turnovers and had some defensive touchdowns. Lucky to beat Arizona by 2. Lost to Green Bay. Lost against Osweiler. Couldn't slow down Miami. 4 road games left. Game and a half leading the division. $3 favorite in some spots to win the division now. Put up or shut up time for the Bears. Can they win on the road?
Yeah, well, when these two teams met, and it wasn't 2 months ago, they met 12 days ago. And it was a very one-sided game. Chicago's defense with Khalil Mack was able to, actually, I don't even remember if Mack played in that game. Chicago's defense was able to dominate. We saw last week a defense completely take over a game with Khalil Mack, in terms of the ability to generate pressure. Was it Akeem? I'm spacing on his last name on the defensive line with Mack and Hicks. Is it on the defensive line?
Yep.
That 1-2 duo was able to literally blow up every play for Minnesota behind the line of scrimmage. And when you have a weak offensive line like Detroit does, and you're facing an elite defense, and that Chicago number 1 ranked defense, they passed the "Are we authentic?" test last week. Boy, it's hard for me to get to the window betting on the Lions in this spot. But that being said, you're right about the spot. And it wasn't like they were scheduled into it. They got flexed into it because the Bears are interesting this year. So when you're talking about something that hasn't happened once since the merger, where you play Sunday night, then have to travel and play early start Thursday, that's a tough spot, especially when your quarterback's hurt. You talked about Chase Daniel, and they say cautiously optimistic. This is a quote from Chase Daniel, quote, "I haven't gotten any reps with the first team this year. But it's the same offense that I was in for 5 years. So for me, it's mostly the same plays. We got some tweaks here and there, and obviously different personnel, but I know the offense like the back of my hand." And then Nagy, of course, knows Chase Daniel pretty well. That's why he brought him in. I know Chase inside and out. He knows me inside out. If that's the route we go, we keep plugging away, and that's just part of football. If not, then it's nice to know that we've got Chase. Of course, Daniel has not started an NFL game since 2014, and Trubisky was unable to practice on Tuesday. Today, just a light walkthrough for Chicago before they get on a plane and head to Detroit.
It's a tough game. Also, Kerryon Johnson doesn't look like he'll go for the Lions. He's had a great year. And the Lions, there was years ago, there was a lot of talk, and rightfully so. Get them off Thanksgiving. It was a joke organization. They kept getting their ass kicked. It started with that loss. Remember, Schwartz didn't know the rule, and there was a turnover, and he challenged it, so he got penalized, which came back to bite him because they lost the challenge. They got blown out by Green Bay. They lost to Houston, routed by the Patriots, lost by 20 or more back-to-back years, lost by 37 against Tennessee, lost by 11 to the Packers, 17 to Miami, 20, and then 41-9. But the last 5 years, 4-1 straight up in ATS. So it's at least they've turned it around here and lost last year against the Vikings, but before that had won 4 in a row.
Yeah, but that's just it. They lost last year against the Vikings. So whatever momentum they had on Thanksgiving, they don't have it coming into 2018, whatever confidence level. And, Detroit's not the better of these two teams. They're not a particularly confident team. They won last week because Ron Rivera chose to go for 2 and didn't succeed on it. And Carolina spent most of that game shooting themselves in the foot. But this is not a Lions team that's been a good home dog in recent seasons, certainly not in the Caldwell era. This year, they've been much better at home than they have on the highway. But Stat Padford, I do not trust Stafford against a defense of this quality.
All right, the middle game. Cowboys 7.5 and 40.5 at home against the Redskins. A little bit of Redskins money. I think it opened 8.5 at the Westgate. Dallas 7-1 all time on Thanksgiving against the Redskins. And they're 30-19-1 all time on Thanksgiving. Now the favorites to win the division, $1.80 in some spots to win the NFC East. They've turned it around. Underrated defense and feeding Elliott has been the key to the turnaround the last couple of weeks. McCoy gets his first start in a few years for the Redskins with Alex Smith out. This note from Mark Lawrence: Turkey Day favorites in the NFL, 7 points or more, 15-3 ATS. That matters in this game and the Saints game coming up. What do you think of McCoy now in for the Redskins and the Cowboys with a little bit of good mojo going?
Yeah, and I've seen them those trends bouncing around all week. With the favorites have done very well. The big favorites have done very well on Thanksgiving in recent years, and that certainly does apply to this ball game. We have another short turnaround situation, just like we had a second matchup situation, just like we had when we talked about Bears-Lions. These two teams met late October, a tight game, and Washington ended up with the 3-point win after Brett Maher's game-tying 52-yard field goal attempt hit the left upright. Remember, that came after the false start that pushed him 5 yards back. But it was a tight game throughout. And, of course, Dallas, since that time, they're a different team. I mean, you can say what you want about making one trade to bring in one guy, but Amari Cooper has changed that offense. He flat out has, because when you have to double team a receiver, it opens things up for Zeke Elliott. All of a sudden, the running game's working. And Dallas, offensively, has looked very, very good over the last couple of weeks. Back-to-back road victories. This, of course, is a very different role for Dallas. You ask about Colt McCoy, Dallas was road dogs the last couple of weeks. Now they're home laying points and laying big points, which has not been Jason Garrett's role, even on Thanksgiving. Dallas long-term has been a very poor home favorite in the Garrett era. But Colt McCoy to Alex Smith to Colt McCoy, I made an adjustment of, I think, 1.5 points in my power rating. I don't know if it even merits that much. McCoy's been there in Washington for a long, long time. Gruden, he's been there throughout the Gruden era. They're very comfortable with him running the exact same offense. And while he's a career backup, McCoy's had some success against Dallas. Washington's problem is not a quarterback. Their problem is the fact their offensive line is shattered. It's still -3 starters. And, with the Dallas' strong defensive line, if the Redskins' offensive line can't protect, it's going to be real ugly for the Skins in this ballgame. And all the other injuries that the Redskins have suffered at running back, at wide receiver, and on down the line. Throwing the short week, throwing the travel. In my mind, those are much bigger issues for Washington than the transition from Alex Smith to Colt McCoy. Colt McCoy can play. He's not elite, but he can certainly fill in for a game against a team he's had success against.
Yep, most people don't agree there's much of a downgrade either, as Alex Smith was having bad stats as well. I could only look under in that one, as the Cowboys have played a ton of unders the last couple of years. And good point that Garrett has been awful ATS at home. The light game. Saints are 13-60. Look at that total. 60 against Atlanta. They won the first game 43-37 in overtime. They've won 9 in a row. They've covered 8 in a row. 48, 51, 45, 30, 43, 33, 43. That's the points total. And Breeze completing like 80% of his passes in home games. Atlanta, off the tough loss, you lose by 3, the last second field goal at home. They come limping in 4-6. They're going to have to run the table. And field goals are not going to do it, Sark. So you got to score touchdowns against New Orleans. And I don't think anybody can slow down this Saints offense right now. After this, they hit the road 3 in a row at Dallas on Thursday, at Tampa, and at Carolina, which is a Monday night game. Still hope for the Rams if they want to get that 1 seed. But, I don't see this offense on a whole nother level. All the talk about the Chiefs and the Rams, as we talked about Monday, the Saints are now the favorites to win the Super Bowl.
As they should be. I've got New Orleans priced a field goal better than the number 2 team in the NFL, where I got KC and LA and the New England grouped together at number 2. And I got New Orleans a field goal, maybe even 3.5 points higher than the rest of the league, deservedly so. When you talk about what the Saints have been able to do, they've been as good offensively as any team that I can remember since that Patriots team that was scoring 50 every week. I mean, this has been an unstoppable offense in recent weeks. They scored 43 against Atlanta the first time, and that was when the Falcons were healthy on defense. They're healthier than they are now. That was, by the way, back in week 3, the Saints' first cover of the year. They've covered every point spread since, hence this enormous betting bandwagon, and hence a point spread that is absolutely out of whack with recent series history. We're talking about, you got to go back to 2011. 2011 since the Saints beat Atlanta by 14 plus. It's been one tight game after the next. You can go back year out. It's been a competitive series. And of course, from a spot, you say Atlanta's coming off that brutal loss. They're 4-6 now. To a man, you read the quotes from the Falcons, and they're on it. Matt Ryan, I think the opponent we're going against, the stage that it's on, makes it pretty easy to be able to turn around quickly and put this one behind us. Talking about the loss last week. Tackle Jake Matthews. We got to win. We just have to prepare well this week. We aren't going to drink some magic potion. It's going to happen. We have to take what we do during the week and execute better during the game. On and on down the line. There's talk for Atlanta, cornerback Robert Alford. At the end of the day, it's going to push you. With the guys in this room, it's going to push us to greater things. Atlanta's bad spot may be real, and the long-term track record for these double-digit dogs may be real, but from an effort standpoint, I do think the Falcons are going to show. And New Orleans right now, the betting bandwagon's so large, there's very, very little. There's no value betting on the Saints moving forward.
Yeah. Very good. 5 football games on Thanksgiving. For some reason, Colorado State's playing Air Force too, and we got the Egg Bowl. So a lot of opportunities there, and a good holiday tournament out here in Vegas in college basketball. Sunday night, loser leaves town, probably. Vikings and the Packers. Minnesota on Sunday night at home. 3.5, 47.5. They had the tie earlier. Minnesota currently the 6th seed in the NFC. Aaron Rodgers has lost 7 in a row on the road. Tough loss in L.A. Close loss against the Patriots. You beat Miami. You lost Thursday night when McCarthy lost his mind in Seattle. Now you got to take on the Vikings, and it's been they've had your number. And last trip there, he got hurt with the collarbone injury. He doesn't look right, Teddy. He seems off. And with a lousy head coach by McCarthy, this Packer team, McCarthy coaching for his job here should be a goner anyways, that this team is under 500 with what we think is a healthy Rodgers.
Sure, but we're blaming McCarthy. Look, Ty Montgomery fumbled the kickoff against the Rams. All right, that's not necessarily McCarthy's fault. Aaron Jones fumbled in the 4th quarter at New England of a tie game. That's not Mike McCarthy's fault. McCarthy did punt on 4th and 2 with 4 minutes left against the Seahawks, but it's certainly not all Mike McCarthy's fault. What's wrong with Green Bay? Davante Adams is their only playmaker. The receiving weapons, where Aaron Rodgers got 8 different guys to throw to, not there this year. They really, Marcus Valdez-Scantling as your go-to guy? No. Davante Adams and what for Green Bay? That's a problem. It really is. And, one of many things that's wrong with the Packers. I think it's playmaker issues. But, we look at this Minnesota team. They're not built to cover as chalk. The offensive line got blown up last week. Coaching staff didn't make adjustments in game to protect their quarterback. And we look at the Vikings' roles. They've been good as a dog. As a favorite, they got 3 covers as chalk all year. They beat the 49ers week 1, and they were lucky to cover that game. They beat the bottom feeder Jets. They beat a Lions team that we just spent half this show ripping on. Minnesota, not an easy team to lay points with, and most assuredly not an easy team to expect to score points in bunches with the struggles of that offensive line, despite Diggs and Thielen making plays all over the place down the field.
Mike Florio had a good point. Every game, there's one play where it's like, oh my God, what a throw by Cousins. How many guys could make that throw? And every game, it's like, oh no, what are you doing? And that happened again with the pick 6 against the Bears as the Vikings lost, and they couldn't do anything on the offense until the 4th quarter. Happy Thanksgiving out there. Enjoy all the action in the turkey. We're back Monday. Money time, play of the day, Sunday night. What do you want to do?
Sure, let's talk about this Packers-Vikings game. First meeting, 29-29, a shootout tie after a touchdown that fit into a window that was this big in the end zone. Yeah, I'm not anticipating anything like that in the second meeting. Both defenses are ahead of both offenses right now. Green Bay lacks playmakers. Minnesota lacks an offensive line. Look for the Vikings and the Packers to stay under the total on Sunday Night Football. Currently 47.5, the prevailing number. Packers, Vikings under. That's our play of the day.
All right, very good. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Thanks for watching. Low Shack in the Bay coming up next. Good luck out there and cash some tickets. We'll talk to you Monday.
Happy Turkey Day.
Gobble, gobble.